I, Michelle, 32, a woman forged in the crucible of cold neglect, was the eldest soul in a Miami, Florida home where my parents showered their devotion like precious rain, yet it fell only on my brother, Andrew. My mom and my dad ruled a healthcare dynasty from their Miami tower. Their ambition a searing wind that scorched my childhood, leaving me a castaway while they polished their golden child. My early years were a reel of desolate frames. My parents would pack Andrew into their sleek sedan, peeling off to Orlando's dazzling theme parks or Tallahassee's gleaming conventions. His chatter a bright thread in the silence that smothered me. I'd linger at our Miami doorstep, breath fogging the glass, watching my mom's hand ruffle my brother's curls as they vanished. A tableau of a family I was never invited to join. My parents lived draped in opulence, their riches a torrential flood fed by ancestral wealth, velvet cushions cradling every wild excess. When Andrew blazed into our fractured world 8 summers after my timid birth, he was a sunburst in their twilight, emerald eyes twinkling like stars, honey curls shimmering like a crown. A boy who wore their pride like a cape. I was a mere silhouette, plain features blurring into the background, a voice too soft to pierce their clamor, a daughter they forgot to see. In Miami's elite enclaves, my brother reigned as their golden child, a toddler whose clumsy dance drew oohs and ahs while I stood unseen, a wraith at the feast. My dad would hoist him high at dinners, beaming for the flash. My mom would stitch his babbling tales into family lore, while my sketches, hours of pencil and heart, molded in a Florida attic, forsaken. My parents didn't deny me shelter, Miami's private tutors drilled me, and Tallahassee's university gates swung wide, but their favoritism was a knife twisting in my ribs. My brother won roars of laughter for knocking over juice, I'd burn midnight oil for perfect grades, earning only my dad's distracted grunt, "Keep it up, Michelle." When I'd choke out, "Why does Andrew go to Key West and I stay?" my mom would hiss, "He's our baby, he needs the world." "You're fine here." Fine where? In a family house where the walls whispered my irrelevance. Where my parents' footsteps faded with Andrew in tow. I pieced together their truth through years of half-heard praises. My brother was their dawn, and I, the dusk they wished away. His every sneeze was a celebration, my every win, a murmur drowned in their family chorus. That ache grew, a splinter burrowing deeper with each slight. But it erupted into a wildfire when my parents decreed that I would pay for Andrew's lavish wedding. Not a favor, an order, as if my years of toil were theirs to harvest for their golden child. My mom had paraded him through Palm Beach resorts while I swept floors for bus fare. My dad had hung his finger-painted smudges in their Miami office while my science fair medals rusted in a box. Every memory stung. My brother nestled between my parents on a Jacksonville dock, their laughter a wall I couldn't breach. I'd been the one home, stitching a family quilt they never wore, while they spun Andrew's thread into gold. Now, this wedding bill landed like a thunderclap. It wasn't just money, it was the final chain in a family prison, forged from every trip they took with him. Every cheer my mom gave him, every nod my dad spared him. I'd been their bank, their shadow, their spare, and that bill was the bitter proof, a gavel slamming down on a family that never claimed me. Florida's thick heat clung to me like a bad memory, but I pushed through and built something for myself anyway. By 19, while my brother, Andrew, was out in Miami, living it up like the world owed him. With my parents brushing off every mess he made, I was in Tallahassee, hunched over books, fighting for every A until my eyes ached. I graduated with honors, landed a steady job in Tampa, and stacked my career one hard-earned check at a time, a quiet way of proving my mom and my dad wrong for ignoring me. But the hurt didn't fade, it sat there. A dull hum in my chest I couldn't tune out, no matter how far I got. Meanwhile, Andrew just glided along, my dad tossing money at tutors he skipped. My mom acting like his half-assed efforts were pure gold. When I asked why I had to chip in for his tuition, my dad growled, "You're the big sister, Michelle. That's what family's about." I swallowed the frustration, sent the cash, and watched my bank account shrink while their golden child sat back with that smug little grin. In Tampa, where the Gulf breeze mixes with real grit, I put together a life they couldn't take credit for. 2 years ago, I met Tara, this sharp marketing woman who saw me when I felt invisible. We got married in Key West, simple and small. All on my own dime, no help from my parents, who couldn't be bothered to RSVP. Andrew showed up out of nowhere, throwing shade at my basic setup like he was too good for it. I still held out hope for a sign from my mom and my dad, some tiny nod that I mattered, a dream I couldn't let go of after years of their silence. Then, a few weeks back, they called me to Miami for dinner, and I thought maybe they'd finally see me. Instead, they dropped a bomb. Their company's falling apart, lawsuits are looming. And Andrew's over-the-top Hawaii wedding, after Palm Beach didn't pan out, needed my money. "You've got a good job, Michelle," my mom said, her voice too soft to trust. I was furious but said yes, my terms, I'd handle it, and I'd speak. At Andrew's wedding, surrounded by the flashy chaos I'd funded, I took the mic, voice shaky, "Mom, Dad, you gave Andrew everything. Left me with nothing. Now I'm bailing you out?" The room froze, everyone staring. I'd sent tuition payments, choked down their guilt, all to prop up their golden child's moment. I hugged Andrew, muttered congrats, and walked out with Tara, my pulse pounding. Running point, that night, in our Hawaii hotel, it hit me hard. I'd been running after their approval like it'd fix everything. That speech wasn't just words, it was me letting go. I stopped waiting, stood on my own, and claimed what was mine. I didn't need their praise, my parents and my brother had taken enough. And I was done carrying them. My mom and my dad strutted through Miami like they owned the damn place, their healthcare gig raking in cash until it all went sideways. They blew money like it grew on trees, fancy cars, beach house upgrades, you name it, but when the lawsuits started raining down, their empire turned into a sinking ship. Still, they'd rather die than let my brother, Andrew, their precious golden child, look anything less than perfect. He'd bailed on high school years ago, too busy playing the spoiled rich kid to care. And they handed him a cushy desk at their firm anyway. Word from Florida cousins was he'd show up maybe once a week, snapping at anyone who dared call him out, pure entitlement in a fancy suit. They'd hush it up, my mom spinning tales about his potential, my dad nodding along like it wasn't a train wreck. So when Andrew's Hawaii wedding rolled around, a loud, tacky rip-off of my quiet Key West moment, they didn't blink before turning to me. "We're tapped out, Michelle," my dad said, like it was my fault they'd burned through their fortune coddling him. I'd been their safety net forever, covering his tuition when he couldn't be bothered to study, kicking in for his rent when he blew his allowance on nonsense. This wedding was just the latest tab they slid my way, expecting me to foot it like always. But when I dropped that mic bomb at the reception, "Mom, Dad, you built him up," left me out. And now I'm stuck with your bill? It was like I'd flipped their whole world upside down. Andrew's jaw tightened, a mix of shock and maybe regret. My parents looked like they'd been slapped, their perfect mask crumbling in front of everyone. They'd coasted on my dime, keeping their lie alive, and I'd just ripped the curtain down. They didn't thank me, they glared, like I'd betrayed them by shining a light on their mess. Update 1, around midnight, Andrew barged into my hotel room, face streaked with tears. "I had no clue, Michelle," he choked out, while Tara slipped out to give us space. He'd bought their story hook, line, and sinker, that I was the distant one who didn't care. I said sorry for tanking his wedding vibe. He shook his head, muttering, "They had it coming." We sat there, hashing it out, first time we'd ever really talked, peeling back years of their bullshit. Turns out he'd been clueless about how deep their favoritism ran, and it hit him hard. Update 2, a week later, my mom called, voice shaky. Andrew had stopped talking to my dad, my speech smashing through the fairy tale they'd fed him. My dad lost it, called me a backstabber, said I was dead to him, the whole dramatic fallout. My mom was desperate, pleading with me to make it right, like I was the one who'd screwed everything up. She didn't get it, their years of playing favorites and dodging reality had set this fire, not me. I just held the match. Update 3. Yesterday, I threw together a dinner in Miami, figuring we might as well face the wreckage. My dad sat there, stubborn as hell. But I caught a flicker of something, guilt, maybe, in his eyes when I laid out how they'd dumped their mess on me. My mom broke down, sobbing apologies that felt years too late to matter. I managed to talk Andrew into a truce with my dad, but it's fragile, like a cracked glass ready to shatter. Their irresponsibility, spoiling Andrew rotten, burning cash like it was nothing. Leaning on me to clean it up, blew this family apart. They raised a prince who never grew up, ran their business into the ground, and left me holding the pieces. Now they're a broken mess, my parents clinging to a ruined image, my brother reeling from the truth, and I'm stuck trying to glue it back together, even though I didn't break it. They thought they could keep this charade going forever, pamper Andrew, ignore me, and dodge the fallout. But you can't outrun reality. Their refusal to own up left us all bruised. My dad's pride a crumbling wall, my mom's excuses a fading echo, Andrew's halo dented. I paid their price, but I'm not carrying their baggage anymore. That Hawaii mic felt like a loaded gun in my hands, and I wasn't backing down. I stood there, the one who'd shelled out cash for my brother, Andrew's big moment, and I unloaded. Mom, Dad. You raised Andrew like a king, left me in the dust, now I'm footing your bill? The crowd sucked in a breath, like the air got punched out of the room. Andrew's eyes narrowed, caught off guard. My mom froze, her fingers twitching like she wanted to snatch the words back. My dad's face went hard, a wall I'd never crack. I let it all pour out, years of hauling their load while they propped him up, my bank account gutted to keep their golden child shining, every time they acted like I was just background noise. That wasn't a speech, it was a match struck in a room full of their lies, and I watched them burn. I turned to Andrew, gave him a quick good luck, and walked out. Tara's steady grip pulling me away from the wreckage. Running point. Later, in the quiet of that Hawaii hotel, something clicked, like a switch flipping after years in the dark. I'd spent my whole life clawing for a piece of their affection, running myself ragged on a hamster wheel they'd rigged against me. That mic wasn't about payback, it was my ticket out. I didn't need their half-assed pats on the back, I'd carved my own damn path. Their happy family bullshit went up in smoke, and for once, I didn't feel trapped. Sure. A little guilt poked at me, did I just trash Andrew's day for good? But it faded fast. This was my jailbreak, and I wasn't looking back. Stepping up to them like that wasn't a cakewalk. I'd carried their weight forever, hustling to cover Andrew's messes while my parents played favorites, always ready with excuses for him and nada for me. But standing there, spilling the truth in front of everyone, flipped the script. They couldn't dodge it anymore, my mom's fake tears, my dad's tight-lipped glare, all their years of brushing me off were laid bare. I wasn't just airing dirty laundry, I was cutting the strings they'd tied me up with. Andrew might have got the spotlight, but I got something better, my own voice, loud and clear. No longer begging for their scraps. A buddy, Ash, chimed in later online, Michelle, your folks are a pair of entitled jokers. You made it despite their crap. NTA should have dropped that bomb way earlier. He nailed it. I'd let their silence choke me for too long, tiptoeing around their ego like it was my job to keep the peace. That night on stage, I shattered that cage, every word a hammer blow to the walls they'd built. Sure, it left a mess, my parents scrambling to save face, my brother blindsided by the fallout. But I walked away lighter. Like I'd shed a skin I'd outgrown. Confronting them didn't just shake things up, it set me free. I wasn't their backup plan or their fix-it girl anymore. I was done playing second fiddle in a family that never had a seat for me, and damn, that felt good. Back in Tampa, the dust's settling, but my parents' mess is sticking around like a bad smell. My dad's in Miami. Scratching my name out of his will like the grumpy old man he's become, too bullheaded to own his screw-ups. My brother, Andrew, their once-perfect golden child, is unraveling. Florida buddies say he's ditching work at the firm more than ever, like my words at his wedding broke something he can't fix. My mom's a mess, holed up in her room. Crying over a family she tore apart herself, way too late to patch it now. That speech I gave didn't just sting, it flipped their whole damn world, and they're still scrambling in the wreckage. Andrew hits me up sometimes, quieter, like he's waking up from my parents' dreamland. But him and my dad? It's a war zone, shouted fights over the phone, dead air between them. A crack that's only getting wider. My mom calls too, her voice thin, asking how it all fell apart, like she didn't spend decades building Andrew up while I got zip. They planted this chaos, lifting him to the sky, kicking me aside, and now it's biting them back. My dad's pride's a wreck, my mom's stories don't fly anymore, and Andrew's shine is gone. I'm out. Done with their drama, but Florida's thick air still hums with the aftermath. They thought they could play favorites forever, no blowback. Wrong. This family's busted, and I'm not cleaning it up. So, what do you think? Ever been through this kind of family mess? Hit subscribe if you want more stories like mine, maybe give the bell a tap too. I'd love to hear your take below.